Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today I want to spend a few minutes talking about used PC hardware. Where can you buy used hardware? Is it safe? How do you make sure you're getting a fair price? What parts should you buy? What parts shouldn't you buy? Those questions, right? And right now, I feel like those questions are even more important as the GPU market is crazy inflated due to there not being any inventory basically anywhere. And the craziest thing about the GPU market right now is that the only cards that I can find being like relatively normal priced are the RTX 3000 series cards. And that's because I live near a Micro Center and Micro Center tries to keep those cards as close to MSRP as possible. And so yeah, let's start by talking about where you can find used parts, some tips for each location, and how to make sure you're staying safe buying them. So there's two like main categories, I'm gonna call them categories of places because it lists a couple of them at a time, right? That I would say that you can go ahead and buy used hardware from. There may be more locations that I'm not listing here, but again, these are the two main ones in my opinion. The first is gonna be like your local market. And I'm thinking like Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist in particular, but I do suppose, since I'm looking at one right now, an open box product at like Micro Center or Best Buy could also be considered in this group as well. In fact, I actually just got the ASRock Z490 Pro 4 motherboard that retails for about $170 for only $112 from Micro Center. Now, it is an open box return, and those are kind of hit or miss if they're even available in your area. But in my experience, these boards are usually almost brand new, and you also get a major discount too. So again, 170 down to 112-ish dollars. That's a huge discount for a relatively decent board for Z490. I'm using this in an upcoming build, and again, I was able to get it for a lot cheaper. So again, this isn't technically like 100% used, but someone did buy it and they did return it. Whether they actually opened it up and actually tried to test it out, I don't know, but I'll be able to test it out myself, see if it works. If it doesn't work, then I can, of course, return it to Micro Center and then get my money back at least. In any case, though, Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist will probably be the place where you can find some really good deals while also find some really bad deals too. And that's because it's going to vary place to place, as well as what time of year it is, and, you know, if the new hardware was released, who's selling it. There's gonna be a ton of factors that influence kind of the deals that you'll find in local markets. I've also noticed that a lot of people who post on Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist think that people looking to buy are ignorant, meaning they don't know the real value of whatever part they are actually searching for. And so you'll often find like a seller try to sell like a 5-year-old graphics card for the same price in which they bought it. And obviously that doesn't make any sense. So yeah, it'll be hit or miss, but you can find good deals once in a while if you keep your eyes open. I keep my eyes open every so often. I'll find something that's pretty decent and I'll try to buy it. But again, it's going to be one of those areas to be more patient and stuff like that. Now, a couple of tips if you're going to be buying off Facebook Marketplace or Craigslist. Make sure you are always testing out the parts and always go with a family member or a friend when you go ahead and you go to pick up the item. I prefer to do transactions in like a busier place, such as like a gas station or a local Walmart or something like that. But it's really hard to test out like PC hardware when you don't have a power source. So try to see if there's like a local computer shop or that will let you like go ahead and take the parts there and test out the parts there to see if they actually work for maybe like a small fee. Or you can also try to see if the seller will video call you, so like FaceTime or Zoom or something like that, to show you that all the parts are working as they are advertising them too, right? Now the downside of the video call is that you don't know if they're actually showing you the proper parts, and those are the exact parts that you are going to be getting, because you can't like take the CPU out while it's actually running the machine, or you know, you could take it out afterwards. But again, it would be a little bit more complicated if you do like a video call to confirm that everything works. But again, you know, try to make sure you're confirming that it will work for you. When all else fails, you can always go to the seller's house, but again, make sure you're bringing someone with you just to make sure you're staying safe, because you never know. Honestly, most people that I've met just want to do the transaction. They want to get the money or they want to get the item and they want to move on, and that's that. But again, we want to make sure you're staying safe. If you're buying locally, then you're being protected in every way possible. Keep in mind, once the transaction is done locally, you don't have any protections if the seller decides to ghost you. So say you take it home, you didn't test it out, you got this motherboard, you plug it all in, nothing works, you bought it locally, you're kind of, you know, you're SOL, right? You don't have anybody, you can't do anything. Nobody's gonna help you from that point in time. That's why it's so important that you're testing the hardware out before you buy it. The second group of places you can go ahead and you can look to buy used hardware is gonna be like online, which is personally my favorite options. And when I say online, I don't mean like the whole internet, because obviously like Facebook Marketplace as well as Craigslist is online too. What I mean is like more specifically hardware swap subreddits and eBay. And I know that these two platforms are different, but the process is basically going to be the same. So I figured I'd just lump them into one like, group in general. Now buying off either platform is pretty similar, and both of them are really relatively safe as long as you're following the rules set by each platform. For example, hardware swap is going to tell you to make sure you're using, if you're buying like over the internet and they're shipping it, make sure you're using PayPal goods and services rather than PayPal family and friends, I think it's called. The reason behind this is because goods and services is like a business transaction, right? If you have any issues, PayPal will help you. If you use family and friends, they don't charge that fee, but if you have an issue as the buyer, you won't get any help from PayPal because they think that it's just, you're sending your cousin some money for whatever reason, right? Or your brother or your sister or whatever, kind of like Zelle or Venmo, right? You're just transferring money. And the same basically goes for eBay as well. It's an actual company, and so they have protections in line to protect you as well as the seller. But, the goal is to follow their rules and you'll be good to go. So if you have any issues, you can, make a claim, and eBay will do everything they can to help protect you, So just follow their rules and you'll be good on those two platforms. Overall, both platforms are great for used hardware, in my opinion, and both platforms can help you score some really good deals if you're willing to be patient. And on top of that, don't be afraid of bidding on eBay, right? People tend to just want to buy something outright instead of waiting for like the actual auction to go through. But I'll tell you right now, bidding can be really, 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 really useful tool if you decide to start using it and you try to get something cheaper, because everybody wants to buy something now, right? I was just looking at a lens, a Sigma 30mm for my A6600 that I use to shoot all these videos. It typically goes for like $300 new. On used, it goes for just a little bit less than that, like at like $280 or $270. This bid went through, it sold for $200. So you can get a big discount by actually bidding on a product rather than just buying it out now. So now that we know where to go, how do we make sure that we're getting something for a good deal? And I'm using like the air quotes, so I'm saying good deal because saying something is a good deal is going to be 100% subjective person to person. Like I mentioned earlier, this Z490 motherboard for $112, right? I think this is an incredible deal. I got like $60 off on this thing, but you might hate Intel, for example. So you might think this is a waste of money. Again, a good deal is going to be subjective person to person. So for this part of the video, I want to focus on how I check for market value so that I know what something is worth at that point in time. Because everything changes price over time, right? Today it might be worth this and tomorrow it might be worth this, right? And with this information, you can compare it to like what's up on sale like right now. And if you can get an item for less than that market value, I personally will see it as a good deal. So it might be more expensive than MSRP, like with the graphics cards right now, because everything's super expensive. But that doesn't mean you can't get a good deal based on the current market value. If you don't like the prices, then you kind of have to wait. The first thing I like to do when I'm looking for a used piece of hardware is find MSRP, because in a normal world, right, a used PC part 9 times out of 10 is going to be depreciating in value. And that's because new hardware comes out every single year, right? And that means that it'll decrease the price of older hardware. After finding the MSRP, I head over to eBay as well as Hardware Swap, and I use them to find out what the market value is. So on eBay, I search for the part that I'm looking for. So for example, a i5-10400F. I scroll down to the show only section of the filters and I hit sold items checkbox. This is gonna bring up everything that has sold recently. And then I go through it and get an idea of what they are actually selling for. After I do this, I head on over to Hardware Swap and I do the exact same thing. I search for what I want. I filter by the subreddit only, because usually when you're on the computer and you search something, it'll search all of Reddit. And then I sort it by the newest. I then go through the list of posts, look to find out what the pricing is and what's it's selling for, and then I go ahead and I take both numbers from eBay and Hardware Swap, I compare them, and I get a range of kind of like what the market value is for whatever I am trying to buy. As I've said before, it might be over MSRP like GPUs right now, but that's market value, right? So that's what you're looking at this point in time. If you don't like what the market value is, then you're gonna have to wait until the prices come down. That's just how it is. Now let's go ahead and take a moment to talk about my thoughts on actually buying used parts and which parts I would buy and which parts I wouldn't buy used, because there are parts that I would try to stay away from if I can. So starting from the top, I think CPUs, GPUs, memory kits, and motherboards are generally okay to buy used. Now you have to keep in mind that some of this hardware could have been used for overclocking. So I like to ask the seller up front if it has been overclocked and to what extent if it has. I personally don't care if it was mildly overclocked because I have several CPUs from, yesteryear that I had overclocked 24/7 going constantly, and to this day they're still running perfectly fine. And my experiences are that those kind of components, they last a very, 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 very long time as long as you're not really abusing them. So mild overclocks, those are okay. As for cases, I don't have a problem with buying them used, but there's a big disclaimer when it comes to cases. They aren't worth it if the seller is asking you to pay for shipping, because shipping is stupid expensive when it comes to cases. And so I personally recommend buying them locally or buying them new or taking a drive to wherever that person is to pick it up, even if it's a few hours away, because again, cases are going to be stupid expensive to ship. For storage, I highly recommend just not buying used unless you know what you're doing or you're buying it from a friend of yours. I personally have several old hard drives and solid states that are still running perfectly fine, but I do know of people who purchased like a used solid state. I actually had a friend recently bought a used solid state, and they had it in their system for just a few weeks, and it was failed, and they called me and they're like, what's going on? I can't get this thing to boot. It failed. It was a used solid state drive. Storage is also super, super, super cheap right now, and it's getting cheaper by the day. And so overall, I don't find storage worth buying used unless, again, you know what you're doing or you're buying it from someone that you know would take care of it, or it was lightly used or whatever. Now, looking at power supplies, I also feel the same exact way. You never know how long they've been active, how close to capacity they've been running, and the fact that they just kind of run your whole entire system just makes me feel like not comfortable buying a used power supply. I could see like a high-end power supply being okay to buy used, but everything else I'd probably just stay away from unless I knew it was coming from someone that I really trusted. And so let me know what you guys think down in the comments below, and if there's anything I missed, any places I missed, any tips that you guys have, or if you have any questions at all. Like the video if you liked it, and subscribe if you want more. I hope you guys have a fantastic day, and I'll see you guys soon.